The night I found out what really happens in the quiet room. Okay, so I work in what has to be the most boring office building on earth. It's a mid-sized firm that does logistical support for medical supply companies. My job, specifically, is data entry and invoice reconciliation. Thrilling, right? My days are a caffeine-fueled loop of typing numbers from scanned forms into our system, VendorTrack Pro. My coworkers are the usual mix. Dave from accounting, who always has a new dad joke. Sarah, who brings in terrifyingly healthy smoothies and talks about her Peloton like it's a family member. And my cubicle neighbor, Martin. Martin's a lifer. Been here 25 years. He's quiet, methodical, knows every single protocol, and has a collection of precisely sharpened pencils in a little leather cup. He's harmless, or so I thought. The building itself is a soulless, beige rectangle. Floors 1 through 3 are our offices. 4 is empty, and 5 is, well, we don't talk about 5. That's where the executives are, and also the quiet room. The quiet room was part of the onboarding spiel. Sometimes for highly sensitive client data, or for employees who need absolute focus to resolve complex reconciliation issues, we utilize the quiet room on the 5th floor. HR Brenda had said, her smile never wavering. Access is by manager approval only. It's soundproofed, has no internet connection, and you surrender your phone at the door. It's for deep work. It sounded vaguely culty, but also, in an age of constant notifications, kind of luxurious. I'd never been invited, and after 6 months, I'd mostly forgotten about it. The strangeness started with Martin. It was small. He'd always been punctual, arriving at 8:28 a.m., 2 minutes before start time. Then he started coming in at 9:15, looking pale, with dark circles under his eyes. He'd lost his usual methodical calm. One Tuesday, I saw him at the copier, just staring at a blank piece of paper as it fed through, over and over, his hand shaking slightly. "You okay, Martin?" I asked. He jumped a mile. "Fine. Perfectly fine. Just tired. Didn't sleep." He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes and scurried back to his desk. A week later, I noticed his beloved pencil cup was empty. He was using a cheap, chewed-up Bic pen. Then came the Stilton incident. Every Friday, someone brings in a treat. It was Dave's turn, and he'd brought a fancy cheese board. There was a particularly pungent blue Stilton. As the smell wafted through the cubicles, Martin, from across the room, suddenly gagged violently. He clapped a hand over his mouth, his eyes wide with panic, not at nausea, but at having made a scene. He muttered allergy and practically ran to the men's room. Sarah and I exchanged a look. Since when was Martin allergic to cheese? He'd eaten Dave's quiche Lorraine just last month. I started paying more attention. The patterns were subtle. Anytime the quiet room was mentioned in an email or by a manager, the lifers, Martin, old Geraldine from filing, a few others, would go very still, their eyes downcast. I saw Geraldine pat Martin's shoulder once, a gesture that seemed loaded with pity. I began to notice that people who went to the quiet room were never the same. They came back quieter, more efficient, but hollow. Their quirks were sanded down. The spark of irritation, the quiet grumble about management, the little rebellions like taking an extra 5 minutes on break, gone. My chance to poke the bear came when I volunteered to help Martin with a backlog. Our system, VendorTrack, is archaic. Sometimes entries glitch, creating a variance. Normally, you just correct it. But Martin, handling a file for a client called Omnicare, hit a variance so large it locked the entire account. The protocol, he explained with a shaky voice, was to print the entire transaction chain and physically take it to the 5th floor for manual reconciliation. "I'll take it," I heard myself say. "You look swamped, Martin. I've never been up there. Might be good for me to learn." The look he gave me was pure, unadulterated terror. "No," he said too quickly. "No, it's my variance. My responsibility. They prefer it that way." "Who's they?" I asked lightly. "The review board," he whispered, as if the words themselves were dangerous. He snatched the papers from the printer. "I'll handle it." But he didn't. He sat at his desk for 2 hours, staring at the stack of paper, paralyzed. At 4 p.m., our manager, Linda, a woman with the steely warmth of a surgical scalpel, appeared. "Martin, the Omnicare variance is flagging on the executive dashboard." It needs to go to the quiet room. Now, Martin stood up, a man walking to the gallows. As he passed my desk, a single sheet from the stack fluttered loose. He didn't notice. I scooped it up, meaning to call after him, but something stopped me. It was a shipping manifest. Medical supplies, syringes, gauze, standard stuff. But the quantities were insane. And the destination wasn't a hospital or clinic. It was a P.O. box in a tiny town in Alaska and a warehouse unit in New Mexico. The client, Omnicare, had a billing address in the Cayman Islands. None of it made logistical sense. It wasn't medical supply. It was a facade. That was the crack through which the dread poured. This wasn't just a boring office. We were laundering something, moving something, coding something that wasn't medical supplies. And the quiet room wasn't for deep work. It was where they made you compliant. I became obsessed. I started staying late, digging through old, archived files on a shared server, using excuses about learning company history. I found more variances, always for Omnicare and a few other shell-like clients, always manually reconciled on the 5th floor. The employees who handled them? Martin, Geraldine, a few others, and then they'd stop appearing in the records. Promoted? Fired? I checked the company newsletter. No mentions. It was like they'd been erased from the narrative after their quiet period. The breaking point was a Thursday. Martin was called to the quiet room again. This time, when he returned 4 hours later, he was different. His shaking was gone. His pallor replaced by a calm, placid expression. He walked to my cubicle. "Hello, my name," he said. His voice was flat, monotone. "I understand you've been reviewing archive variance reports. The Omnicare files from 2019 are particularly instructive, aren't they?" I froze. I'd accessed those exact files the night before. There was no way he could know, unless they'd told him. In the quiet room, I was just trying to understand the protocols better, I stammered. "Curiosity is a valuable trait," he said, his smile a perfect, empty replica of his old one. "But it must be directed. Linda suggests you might benefit from some focus training. In the quiet room. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a summons. I felt cold sweat bloom on my back. I'd seen what it did to people. It didn't just train you. It broke you and rebuilt you as something useful, something that wouldn't ask about Alaskan P.O. boxes. I mumbled something about looking forward to it, and he walked away, his gait perfectly even. That night, I didn't sleep. I was trapped. If I ran, they'd know I knew. They'd come after me, or worse, just make me disappear from the records like the others. If I went to the quiet room, I thought of Martin's dead eyes. No, there had to be another way. My plan was desperate and stupid. I would go to the 5th floor, but I would hide my phone. It was a huge risk. They scan you, I'd heard. But I had an old, tiny burner phone, a relic from a forgotten gym bag. I taped it to the small of my back, under my shirt. My heart was a jackhammer as I rode the elevator to 5 at 9:58 a.m. The 5th floor was different. Plush carpet, silent. Linda was waiting, her smile crisp. "Right this way. You'll surrender any electronic devices here." She held out a basket. I placed my main phone and smartwatch in it, praying the lump under my shirt wasn't visible. She led me to a door that looked like any other, except it had a keycard scanner and a small, red LED. The quiet room. She opened it. It was an office. A nice one. A desk, a comfortable chair, a stack of papers, and a large, sleek, silver air purifier humming in the corner. "You'll find the Omnicare files from 2019 on the desk," Linda said. "Your task is to re-audit them and write a report on the procedural discrepancies. Take all the time you need. Lunch will be brought to you at 1. The door clicked shut behind her. I heard the distinct thunk of a magnetic lock engaging. I was locked in. I sat at the desk, my skin crawling. The air had a faint, sweet, metallic smell. The air purifier hummed. I waited 5 minutes, then pulled the burner phone from my back. No signal, as expected, but it had a camera. I started taking pictures of the Omnicare files, page after page of damning data. Manifest for thousands of pounds of sterilized packing material going to the New Mexico warehouse. Invoices for specialized consulting fees in the millions. Then I got dizzy. A thick, cottony feeling filled my head. The sweet smell was stronger. I looked at the air purifier. It wasn't purifying. It was emitting a faint, Almost invisible mist shimmered from its vents. They were gassing me, sedating me, making me pliable. Panic shot through me, cutting through the fog. I stumbled to the door, locked solid. No other exit. A vent? Too small. The mist was coiling around me. My thoughts were turning to syrup. I had to do something now. My eyes fell on the air purifier unit. It was plugged into the wall. If I could stop it. I staggered over, my limbs heavy. I grabbed the cord and yanked. The plug came free. The hum died. The mist stopped, but the lock was still magnetic. I was still trapped, and now they'd know I'd resisted. I had to get out. I scanned the room. The desk. A heavy, old-fashioned metal letter opener. I grabbed it, wedged it into the seam of the door near the magnetic lock, and threw my weight against it. Nothing. The fog in my brain was receding, replaced by raw adrenaline. I screamed. I pounded on the door. Let me out. Suddenly, the red LED on the door scanner turned green. The lock disengaged with a loud clack. I fell into the hallway, letter opener in hand. Linda and a security guard I'd never seen were standing there, not shocked, but expectant. "Ah," Linda said, her voice cool. "The resistant profile. We were wondering when you'd manifest." The security guard took a step forward. I brandished the letter opener, a pathetic weapon. "Stay back. I have pictures. Of everything. I've sent them." It was a bluff. But Linda's smile finally faltered. Just for a second. A flicker of uncertainty. "Send them where?" she asked, but the coolness was strained. "To a friend. With instructions to open if I don't check in by noon." The lie tumbled out. They know all about Omnicare, the gas, everything. A standoff in the silent hallway. The security guard looked at Linda. She studied me, her eyes calculating the risk, the liability. I was no longer a pliable asset. I was a live grenade. "You're terminated," she said finally, her voice icy. "Effective immediately. You will surrender the phone, sign an NDA, and leave the premises. If any data leaks, we will pursue legal action to the fullest extent. You will never work in this industry again." "I'll take the termination," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm not signing anything, and I'm keeping the phone until I'm off the property. You come near me," I screamed the building down. I walked backward to the elevator, holding the letter opener out, the burner phone clutched in my other hand. They didn't follow. The ride down was the longest of my life. I drove straight to the police. Not the local precinct, but the FBI field office. I showed them the pictures, told them everything. About the gas, the quiet room, the shell companies, the manifests. They listened with stone-faced interest. They took the phone. They asked a lot of questions about the chemical smell. That was 3 months ago. The story broke last week. Medical supply, firm front for international fentanyl precursor ring. Executive floor used for chemical interrogation and coercion. The news anchors used words like trafficking and mind-altering substances. They mentioned a proprietary aerosolized benzodiazepine compound used to induce compliance and amnesia. The quiet room. They arrested Linda, the CEO, and several others. Martin and Geraldine were named as unwitting test subjects who had suffered permanent neurological damage. The company is shuttered. I got justice of a sort, but the cost, it's unsettling. I'm a minor footnote in the articles, a whistleblowing employee. I can't get another job. The industry blackballed me. Worse, though, is the fear. The gas they used, sometimes when I'm very tired, I think I catch a whiff of that sweet, metallic scent on the breeze. Or in a crowded room. I wake up some nights, my head cottony, convinced the hum of my ceiling fan is the hum of that purifier. They're gone, the bad guys are caught, but the method they created, it's out there. And I was in the room where it happened. The victory feels hollow, because I know the real secret wasn't about the drugs we were moving. It was about how easy it is to unmake a person to turn them into a quiet, compliant tool. And that knowledge is a poison that never quite leaves your system. I got my life back. I just don't feel at home in it anymore. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story crazy or shocking, drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more unbelievable storytime content.